Greetings, heroes. My name is David, and this is UnBowed Productions. I really want to thank you for joining me today because we got a really awesome one here. I'm going to be sitting down and chatting with Jaime Rosenberg. If you don't know who he is, he's a Toronto-based drummer doing some really incredible things out there. Now, before we get into it, I want you to do the usual YouTube things. Give us a like, give us a share, subscribe to the channel, and really give us a chat in the comment. Let us know what you think, who we should be working with, who we should be chatting with. I love to hear from you guys. I love to interact with you. So here it is. Here's Jaime. Here we go. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is a great day for this. It's a great day to chat. Got some people in the chat already, which is amazing to see. Um, Before we get started, really, the first thing that we've been chatting about and people have been asking about is that amazing hat. Is it a Nine Inch Nails hat?
No, it's not. It's a 416 hat.
Which makes it
Popular
even better.
misconception.
Makes it even better. All right.
Yeah.
Before we really get into it, you're used to this with me. Um, can you give me your social medias, how people can reach out to you, how people can listen to your music?
Yeah. My personal Instagram is at jrosenbeats, Rosenbeats,
I like that.
jrosenbeats. And I'm working on some new music now, and that will be out soon. So you can follow the Pawn Shop Official on Instagram at the Pawn Shop Official, and there'll be some new music coming out there in the coming weeks and months.
That's perfect. I want to get people to know you a little bit. So, how did you get into music?
So my earliest introduction to playing music was when I was about 5, I think. I started playing piano, and that was the instrument I played for a long time, but it didn't really, like, nothing clicked. It wasn't something I loved doing. The scope of what I was studying was so limited, just the method books that my teacher was giving me, and no input from me on what I like or what I wanted to be playing. So it was not something I really loved to do. And then when I was 11, I switched to drums, and then it kind of clicked, and it became something that I really, really had a passion for, and wanted to pursue and wanted to get better at and play with other people. And then that's kind of, in terms of a musician, that's kind of my progression. In terms of listening, my parents kind of always listened to music. My mom, she liked a lot of like Motown stuff. My dad is a huge Beatles fan, so there was always different kinds of music playing in my house from an early age. So that was, in terms of listening, that's kind of where it started for me.
Okay. So, how did you get into your style of drumming? So, I guess before we answer that question, how do you describe your style of drumming? Because I know what I think, but
I would say like mostly funky. Other influences, some jazz influence, some rock influence, a little bit of influence from like Latin music. I studied some Latin rhythms when I was at Humber, so that I wouldn't say that's like a heavy influence, but it does kind of make its way in sometimes. So yeah, funky
okay.
with drawing from other influences. But how I got into the funky music was, I remember someone I played in a band with in high school gave me a Soul Live album, and that's kind of what got me started. It was No Place Like Soul, so
Okay.
that's, I wouldn't list that as one of my favorite Soul Live albums by any means, but it was a great intro. And then from Soul Live, I got into bands like Lettuce, and Dumpsta Funk, and then started going back and checking out some of their influences, some of the like New Orleans stuff, like the Meters, Tower of Power,
Mm,
West Coast kind of stuff. We have a great drummer, David Garibaldi, who kind of like pioneered the linear funk kind of stuff.
yeah. So, did you develop the style? Did you get into that funky style through listening to them and sort of self-teaching? Were there mentors? Were there people to teach you this sort of thing, or did you find it yourself?
Uh, a little bit of both. When I was in high school, I studied with a guy named Vito Rezza. He was a fusion drummer, so we kind of worked on some groove stuff and some phrasing ideas. And then I studied with other guys who were like more like jazz guys, a guy named Jim Blackley,
Mhm.
Bob McLaren. But yeah, Paul DeLong, I would say, was stylist, like in terms of stylistically, was the closest to that kind of stuff. And I would say was one of my favorite teachers. I studied with him for a year at Humber,
Mhm.
and I think the reason that he was such a great teacher was like he's a like ridiculously good drummer, but I like the way he teaches because it's very applicable. He'll give you like a certain, whether it's like a sticking pattern or, a phrasing idea or like a kind of groove. He'll give you that, but then he'll
Mhm.
also give you a play along track that's like the right tempo to practice that stuff. So you're getting the concept, but you're also being shown how to apply it like in a musical context instead of just like working out a pattern.
That's very cool because I know a lot of teachers just sort of want you to hammer it out without the rest of the band, I guess is the way
Yeah.
to phrase it. But that doesn't feel right, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the reason I'm asking is because we'll get into it again in a little bit, but learning to play it particularly when it's sort of outside of the classical or sort of mainstream stuff, finding your own musical voice becomes a bit of a challenge. And I think a lot of people feel that like they don't want to play classical drums, they don't want to play your traditional jazz drums or rock and roll or whatever, and trying to find your own voice feels very, very daunting. But you've just laid out a bunch of ways to.
And I actually had a good conversation yesterday about finding your own voice with someone named Rob Christian, a saxophone player,
Mhm.
and he was saying like it's interesting um, if you take things from like masters of their instrument who are not necessarily like the trendy ones or like the ones who are in the spotlight, because you know if you play like someone that everyone knows and loves, then you sound like that guy. But if you're
Yeah.
kind of learning from somebody who is on the same level of mastery, but maybe is a little bit less obscure and less people know, then I mean, yeah, it kind of helps you have more of your own voice because it's not as recognizable.
Yeah, and you're not just trying to make that sort of mainstream sound, you're trying to find your own voice and then turn that to mainstream.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. And I guess you've if you listen to a bunch of your stuff with Afterfunk, the new band, you're a bit of a chameleon when it comes to drumming. You sort of take on different voices and different aspects.
Yeah, I think it's all about kind of, serving what that song calls for. And with Afterfunk, we definitely, our songs, they all had our kind of signature style, but there was a lot of diversity. So I think,
Mhm.
it's important to be able to play what's called for and not just kind of, you know, fit what you would do into the song, but tailor your part to what the song calls for. And then that
Exactly.
way also you can kind of, it's interesting. Like someone can come in the past, like in an after funk setting, for instance, like Yannick would bring in a song, and then you know what I hear in my head was different from what he heard the part being, but it kind of gave the song its own identity and shape, I guess. So
Hmm. No, and I think that that's so important because if we're looking at YouTube, if we're looking at this sort of new culture moving through, the the old culture used to be, here's the songs, play the songs, do the thing, get rich through the record industry. Now, as everybody's moving to online platforms and doing that sort of stuff, there's still this really big feeling of sort of aping the mainstream, doing covers, doing things like that, and not really finding your own voice. But I think what you just mentioned, so that leads into the pandemic. I hate talking about it, but it changed everybody's life so much for the past 3 years. How did it affect you Like we'll
Uh,
start just on a personal level. Like how you been doing, man? Did you survive?
yeah, I survived. I mean, I feel pretty fortunate. I definitely rocked the boat a little bit, and got in the way of a lot of my like daily routines and goals and stuff. But I do feel as though I used the pandemic to my advantage. I did a big pivot, started a new business that's been going really, really well, and that took up most of my focus and my time and energy during like the initial lockdowns. I got kind of away from playing drums as much as I would have liked to, but I did start studying tabla, an Indian percussion instrument. So most of my
Okay.
musical focus at the beginning of the pandemic was spent studying tabla, which is great. I still study. I don't practice as much as I should or as I would like to. But yeah, I just, switched my focuses. I was working on growing this business, which now is, grown to a good point. It's Greater Toronto Music School, a music school operating in Toronto and online.
Mhm.
And yeah, learning tabla. And then kind of as things started to settle down a little bit and reopen, got back to jamming, which feels good. I forgot how much fun it was to play. I got called to sub in for this cover band to play at like a backyard party in Burlington or something, and it was the first gig that I got, and it was fun. It was like, oh yeah, man, I missed this. And then started a Thursday night residency with Phil from Afterfunk. And initially, it was a guy named John Amador on bass and Rob Christian on keyboards and saxophone. Now John is busy, so instead of John, we added this guy Alan Jamitis. He's an organ player, so it's like an organ quartet, organ trio plus saxophone. We've been playing twice a week on Sundays at Smoke Show Barbecue and Thursdays at the Emmett Ray, both in Toronto. And kind of over the last lockdown, we got together and we wrote and demoed and workshopped like 7 songs. And then we went to my friend's farm in King City
Mhm.
and we filmed them all and recorded them all. So we've got 7 original songs and videos coming soon under the name The Pawn Shop. And we're starting to book gigs, booked our first festivals, and starting to get out there. So, over the spring, summer, and fall, that's going to be another focus, and we're going to be pushing that and trying to get on the road and everything and keep creating new content.
And there's a nice segue. So you've started this new band. You're working with a new band, and while you've worked with some of these guys before, like I know, like you and Phil have a long history together. It's a different feeling. And how has it been trying to recreate, or not recreate, but create a new sound?
It's been cool. That's something that playing with one band for so long and so much, it limits the amount that you can play around with other musicians. And I think that, that's such a good opportunity for, networking and growing, and there's always something to be learned from every person. So the more people you can play with, especially like really great players, I think uh, you know, it only makes you a better player. So it's been nice. I've been playing, around with other bands as well. So
Mhm.
I've had the opportunity to play with a lot more people now than I did when, I'm gigging less, but I'm playing with more people. So it's an interesting
Interesting.
experience, but I like it. But it's been nice. So Phil produced an album. Uh, I think like he was working on it before all the lockdowns and stuff, and he hired us, the Afterfunk guys, to play on it, and then he hired Rob, who's an amazing. His main instrument's flute, but he's also like an amazing saxophone player and keyboard player. So he hired Rob to mix this album, and then they kind of struck up a friendship. And then so we started this residency, and then we needed to get a sub for John one day, and Rob had the idea to ask Alan, like, let's do an organ quartet, and that was my first time meeting Alan on that gig. But it went really well. It was tons of fun, and then we decided to kind of keep at it, and then that brought us to when we were in the last lockdown, and we wrote and recorded all those tunes.
Mhm. And Then okay, so I guess here's the weird thing because you were talking about. So let's highlight it. Yay, you've got a single coming out in the near future.
Yeah, actually, we have like I don't know if these are going to come together to create an EP or not, but initially, like we're just going to be releasing YouTube videos and like reels on Instagram. So not like an official release on eventually a release
Okay.
for like an EP.
You headed me off right there. So I guess that was the question, and this sort of new environment that we're coming into that's been accelerated by the pandemic is this online new media sort of thing, which is what Unbowed does, and what I'm so interested in hearing about from you is, do you think it needs to be an EP, or is the release single release, do it through Spotify, do it through YouTube, do it through Instagram Reels and other things? Is there, do you feel that that's just as viable, or even, thoughts?
I think that you get more bang for your buck like that, definitely. I wouldn't want to just even if it was an EP or a full length album that we would release. I don't think the strategy would just be release it all at once, but release a few songs leading up to it with videos and then eventually release the full thing because these days I think it's important to be putting things out often and consistently. Otherwise
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get forgotten about. Everyone's just like everyone can consume so much information so quickly that you have to have stuff to follow up with your if you have a something that hits really hard, a good piece of content. I think it's really important to be able to follow that up, and even if you don't have something that hits really hard, I think the consistency is important because that's how you're going to get to the point where you have something that hits really hard.
Yeah, and it's I think, we can sit there and really hope for that viral video or whatever, but that constant, as long as you're putting out quality product, which you guys do, like, let's be honest, you guys do great stuff. Keeping it going, keeping it rolling, just building that momentum up. Hopefully you get a viral video, but nobody knows what's going to go viral, but
Yeah, and if you look at someone like Drake, like he's always got a new song on the charts, and
mhm.
he manages to always be relevant because he's always putting music out, and I think that's it's smart. You don't get forgotten about if you always have something new.
Though that becomes a challenge, and I was talking about this with another band friends, that do you worry that there's a point where this constant need for to put something out all the time will dilute the product, or like lower the quality?
Not necessarily. I think it's tough to be releasing a song so frequently, but you can generate other kinds of content like reels. If you get together and you just even if you have like a good recording set up from your show, you can just take a 30-second clip and you can post a few reels a week, and that way you still have things to engage people and people are still getting new content and stuff. I think your strategy just kind of has to change, and what's looked at as a release or a piece of content that can be modified.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then the ones that are more like a single or an album, then those hold more weight, so you maybe put more behind that. But I think it's important to be putting things out consistently, even if it's just like a 15-second clip.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me about this school. Talk to me about what you're doing and the why.
um, so it's called Greater Toronto Music School. We do in-home lessons and online lessons for students. We've got students as young as like 3 years old and all the way up to people in their 70s and 80s. So I think it's a good way to give back, to lots of different communities. It's I'm able to provide work for a lot of my friends, teaching work and otherwise, and I think I'm also able to provide really good quality music education to families well, most of the clients are and students are kids, but it's a wide range of people, and I think there's this notion going back to when I played piano. There's this notion that music education is not necessarily fun, and sometimes when it's presented to kids in a certain way, it feels like a chore and you don't want to, practice. But I think there are so many ways that you can present those fundamental and help people develop those fundamental skills. And it's important to figure out what speaks to each person, stylistically, like what do they like? What makes them excited? What do they like to listen to? And, it's not always possible for a student to dictate what they want to play, because sometimes there are certain things that you just have to learn before you can do that, or we have to focus on this even though it's not the most fun thing because it's a really important thing. But I think you know being able to offer people music education that does make sure that they're learning the right way, they're developing good technique, good habits, developing their ears, that kind of stuff, but also taking into consideration like what do they like and letting them explore those things. I think it's a good way to get kids onto music, and whether or not that's something that they're going to do professionally or even semi-professionally, that's not really a priority. But I think it's good, to learn discipline and to gain confidence, and it helps with math and reading skills and stuff. So I think it's nice to, help
Mm-hmm.
set people up for success. And for me personally, it's also been really nice because it's helped me think about other goals that, as a touring musician, like financial goals and personal goals, that as a touring musician, um, it's hard to necessarily think about those and work towards those. So it's been nice to have a period of, whatever it is it's been since a year and a half, maybe a little more, since I've really started grinding this, to be able to set myself up to look after some of those things that I would like for myself, and also, you know, give back to the community of the next generation of musicians, and also my peers who, have no gigs or anything, or any,
Mm-hmm.
now they're coming back, thankfully, but, friends of mine and peers who need the work. So it's been great for all of that stuff.
No, and that's exactly, you know, what we need right now. I don't know if you've been paying attention or stuff, but I have a lot of friends at different universities and stuff, and college and university music programs are getting shut down left, right, and center just because there's no, like, funding is a huge challenge during the pandemic and going forward. So everybody seems to think that chopping the music program is the right way to go.
Yeah.
And like I know it's a silly question to ask, but it's always, I think, the right one. But can you imagine your life without music? Like, if like music was to stop right now, how, like, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's kind of like, I don't know, it's such a big part of my life, from, my playing in bands to my business, even though I'm not playing the same way. It's revolved around music and listening. So many of my friendships and memories are all formed around music in one way or another too. So no, not really.
Yeah, it's such a thing to think about a world without music, and it's nice to see that there's people like you sitting there, and I don't want to say picking up the slack, because it's not your responsibility to pick up the slack for these cutting programs, but you're there and you're providing it, and that's, you know, and let's be honest, it'd be a lot of fun to take music lessons from you.
Yeah, I try and make it fun for sure. And same with the other teachers. Like, I really got to shout them out, because
Hmm.
everybody is super talented and patient and inspiring, and I'm thankful to have all of them
No,
working on our.
yeah, it's absolutely amazing to be thinking about this, and I think there's a lot here to have more conversations in the future, but I know you've got a lot to do, so I kind of want to spread this out a bit, and we'll chat in a little bit. But I want to thank you for coming out and doing this. I'm going to give you a chance. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I want to thank you for having me out too. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for what's to come for you and everything in the future.
I'm so excited to see this community grow. For us to all work together to sort of, I don't want to say remake what we've lost through the pandemic and other things. Like, we're doing something, you with the school, with your bands, UnBowed, what we're doing. This is a completely new thing, a new community, a new life, and I can't wait to see where we all go together. And particularly, you're such an amazing supportive person. G, who we've been shouting out in the comments and everything, is such an amazing supportive person to all the musical artists in our thing. And I guess there's a really great place to segue to an ending is, now that things are opening up, now that we've got the chance and people are starting to get the opportunity to perform live again, go out, go check it out, go give them their patronage and your love. And if
Yeah.
you really want to go see Jaime as the awesome drummer that he is, and you do other stuff, I think, with the band, but mostly drumming, where can we go see you on a regular basis?
Every Thursday at the Emmett Ray in Toronto. Most Sundays at Smoke Show Barbecue. This coming Sunday, we're not there, and also in Toronto. And we'll be announcing some dates on the road soon as
Perfect.
well.
And you're going to announce when that video drops, and we're going to give it a huge shout out and make sure that everybody gets to see that video. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll give you a little sneak peek.
Oh, please, please, please. All right, guys, I really want to thank Jaime for sitting down and doing that incredible interview. I love chatting with him. He is such an amazing guy. Now, before we go check out his stuff. It's going to be in the description box down below, or it might be that way. I think it's that way. In a pinned comment, just because he's got a bunch of stuff going on, and I really want to make sure it gets highlighted. Now, for here at UnBowed Productions, we are doing some really cool things, and we want you to be a part of it. So give us a like, hit that subscribe button so you know what's going on, click the little bell so you get all the notifications, share us with your friends so they can find out all the cool and awesome music that's out there, and, drop us a comment. One, it helps with engagement. I'm not going to lie. That helps us a lot. But furthermore, I want to know who you guys want us to interview, to chat with, to work with. All the cool visual arts, dancing, all that great stuff that's going on in your community that you might be involved with. Let us know what's going on, because we really want to be a part of it. Now, we also got some other really cool things, so keep your eyes out. We got a Patreon coming with some really cool perks. Plus, UnBowed is growing, and we're going to be doing some really cool things in the future, and I really want you guys to be a part of it. Now, as the man said, we are always moving onward and upward to greater glory. And there's no better way to say it. Stick with us. Together we are UnBowed.